Your true colors are beautiful like a rainbow. There's a wonderful line from Dr. Ernest Holmes, the great metaphysician from the last century, where he says, "Find me someone who can rise up without destroying any part of themselves." Right? And that's sort of that song talks about that. You know, some of us, we say a part of us feels insecure, a part of us feels secure, a part of us feels loved, a part of us feels unloved, a part of us feels this. And we always think that that mix of things is something wrong with us. And there's nothing wrong with you. We all have many colors, yes? And what we want to do is recognize that the true color, the who we really are, is one with all things, yes? So Dr. Holmes also, so he says, find me someone who can ascend, can rise up without destroying any part of themselves. So it's not like I want to kick all of those parts of me out. I just want to rise up and become more into my own center. Is that making sense? Take all of we with me as I grow. And we might find that some of the things that we used to put attention on don't matter to us so much anymore. But we don't have to destroy any part of ourselves to grow forward. Is that making sense? Yeah. So today's lesson is entitled Love and the Word. And it is, I think, perhaps the greatest concept there is. So what I'm going to do is go to Judge Thomas Troward, who we happen to be doing a class in right now. We're coming into our 5th week. Is the 5th week coming up? Mic is not on? What are we doing? Testing, 1, 2, 3. It needs to be up higher? It's making a lot of noise. Okay. I don't know why it's making noise. There we go. How's that? Better?
Well, I'll find out when you move.
If we find out it'll move. Okay, good. So I'll just undress and then nothing will touch it. There we go. So we're all supposed to be naked with God, yes? Okay. So Judge Thomas Troward, we're teaching this class. We're the 4th or 5th week in the class, of 8-week class. And very wonderful stuff, because this was the material that really sort of quickened Dr. Holmes's philosophies. He had been studying this stuff his whole life, and when he read this material from Troward, it quickened the whole thing, and he saw basically the whole system of mind, the whole system of creation and how it works. And that's, of course, also what Judge Troward found. And so what we find, and I've taught this material for many, many years, so coming around to teach it for the first time in 2 or 3 years again, I actually start reading this stuff, and I have to put it down. I start quivering with excitement. It's like, whoa, wow, this is something. And of course, we can see a concept, but to digest a concept takes time, yes? And when you digest something, as Ernest said, we don't know how a ham and cheese sandwich becomes muscle, bone, and sinew, but it does, right? So we don't know exactly how it is we digest ideas. But when we do begin to really digest them, we can feel them inside of us. They start to become part of who we are. So here's this quick little thing that he says, and we're going to go into this for the whole lesson, by Judge Troward. Spirit creates by self-contemplation. Spirit creates by self-contemplation. So we would say God, whatever God knows, is, correct? Because as soon as God thinks about it, then it's a possibility, yes? And since God is all possibilities, as soon as God thinks about it, it becomes manifest, yes? That would be called the level of the absolute, right? Spirit creates by thinking about itself. And when it thinks about itself, that comes out as an idea, and that idea turns into form automatically in God all the time, yes? Therefore, what it contemplates itself as being, that it becomes. Everybody with me so far? You are individualized spirit. Everybody touch that. Say, I am. I am individualized spirit. You are individualized spirit. Therefore, what you contemplate as the law of your being becomes the law of your being. So when you believe that you are abundant, you will be abundant. When you believe that you are radiant, vibrant, dynamic health, you will be radiant, vibrant, dynamic health. When you believe that the fountain of eternal youth is always there and it's flowing through my Christ self as my divinity, your aging process will slow down. Because all of those things are beliefs other than the divine belief. Now, we know that's true in the physical level because we already know the body regenerates cells, and within 2 years, every cell of your body has been regenerated. So why then does it regenerate in a disease pattern if that's not normal? And the answer is because we haven't believed in this true nature of ourselves. We haven't believed in our true colors, yes? So we have to believe that we are this thing first. So let me go back to the beginning and say this is about love and the Word. This is Valentine's Day this week. Good luck for all of you romantically oriented people. We're going to a seaside luncheon, my wife and I. That'll be fun. I already got cards and presents. That's good. I'm ahead of the curve. But this is about love, right? Love Month is about being love. And of course, I'm not the only grandparent in the room, but it's not about my grandchildren at all. It's about what happens when we realize this fountain of love. When we realize that it's pouring out all the time. When we realize you can't run out. And one of the blessings about having more than one grandchildren, as I'm looking at some of the grandmas around the room, is we're just amazed. Aren't we all just amazed about how much love it is? It's like, and it just keeps pouring out. And where did this come from? It's like you're standing on a fire hydrant or something. It just opened up all of a sudden. Like, it just keeps coming out. And you can't run out. That's so exciting, right? Well, that's the flow of all of life. But how is the flow of life is coming through you like that, and what is it causing it not to fly all the way out into your experience? The answer is your word. Your word, not God's word, your word is what's limiting this possibility. Yes? So let me go give you some Old and New Testament stuff today, because I think this is valuable in our soul. So in the Genesis 1, first 3 chapters in the book of Genesis, the Old Testament, those of you who are Jewish would know that's the Torah, right? And the Torah says, in the beginning, God. And God said. Now, if God said, didn't he have to have a word? Right? So what God said is a word, yes? Now, you go forward into the New Testament. In John 1:1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now, in the beginning God, so in Genesis 1, it says, in the beginning God said, let there be light. Isn't that a word? Here's my word, let there be light. Then what happened when God said, let there be light? There was light. And all the things that formed out of the whole cosmos out of that, correct? The whole cosmos formed because God said. Yes? Now you're born in the image and likeness of God. So in the beginning was the Word. So we go forward in the New Testament, it says in the beginning was the Word, but in the beginning was God. But God's first motion was the Word. Do you see that? The first moment that God moved was the Word. God said, let there be. So those 2 verses, although coming from very different times in history, say exactly the same thing. That God is the Word. Oh, now if I'm created in the image and likeness of God, guess what I am? The Word, right? So here's the great gift. Now, so we talk about love. I said love and the Word, right? The whole idea of this talk today is that the greatest act of love there could possibly be is the giving of the Word unto you. Right? That is the complete gift of God to its self-conscious creation. Because here's how it really works in the world. Everybody belongs to energy and matter equal and interchangeable. We all get that, right? So the image for that is a circle. Yes? There's nothing outside the circle. The problem with our mind is we circumscribe it. We go, well, how could there be something not outside it? You got to get the circle bigger. There's nothing outside it. Yes? And therefore, there's no place for it to leak. There's no place for it to go. Nothing can go wrong. It's a closed system. Yes? So, in the beginning was the Word, and God thinks about something, meaning thinks about the potential of something, and that thing becomes form. Yes? So, that's doing it right now. It's thinking of new universes. And right now, it's building new universes, creating them. right? They're coming into form. Why? Because God already thought about it. Yes? Now, we have something in our country, in Western language rather, called science fiction. Yes? Anybody ever read any science fiction stories? Anybody ever seen a science fiction movie? Anybody know about science fiction? So let's go, we'll just take one of my favorite science fiction writers. Since my name is Moses, I took some authority. I made him Saint Gene Roddenberry, right? And Saint Gene, but according to my word, he is Saint Gene Roddenberry, right? Because Saint Roddenberry looked across the field of possibilities, and he took ideas, and he said, where do those go if you go past them? So the first thing he says, well, we, at that time in his life, when he began to write science fiction stories, the science data at the time said there is no such thing as faster than the speed of light. Right? He said, that's it, so you can't. So a science fiction writer looking into infinite mind says, well, what if that wasn't the idea, and there was something faster than the speed of light, and if you got faster than the speed of light, that would be called a warp speed, and the way that warp speed increases is not a few miles an hour at a time, but by factors. So warp 8 is 8 times the speed of light, right? And now, this heretofore untravelable galaxy or universes become travelable and traversable at 8 times the speed of light. Do you see how that works? And all he did was take that idea and stretch it. Well, what if you go past that idea? Well, isn't that what the Wright brothers did? Right? If man was supposed to fly, wouldn't he have wings? That was the belief for thousands and thousands of years before the Wright brothers were playing around with bicycle chains and wings on a hillside. Yes? I just drove to San Diego the other day, drive down by LAX. I saw, one of those giant, like bigger than 747 planes. I don't even understand why they don't just fall out of the sky. But I trust the principle. I get on them, right? There's a principle which, understood at a deeper level, will take you to that place. Now go back to St. Gene Roddenberry. St. Gene Roddenberry says, well, what if that's not true, that you can't go faster than the speed of light? And what have we now found out in particle accelerators and looking at units of smaller than the atom? We find out is that electrons seem to be able to be 2 places at one time, transcending the laws of time and space. And certainly if they're 2 places in what appears to be one time, they're moving much faster than the speed of light. Right? So now we know in science that, oh no, there is such a thing as faster than the speed of light. But do you see, the idea had to be conceived somewhere before we could start to play with it. Yes? Same thing about cell phones. Where was cyberspace? When I went to high school, there was no cyberspace. Cyberspace was a fantasy in people's minds. Right? But now we hold a supercell in our supercomputer in our hands, every one of us. Well, what the heck, right? And all they did was take the idea and go past it, yes? Now let's look at a couple other little biblical things in here, because what we're talking about here is the greatest act of love is the giving of this word. So here's how it really works. Every human being, without their ever talking, because isn't the word an idea formed, yes? Do you see that the word is an idea formed? Right? So if an idea is formed, then I can speak about that idea. That's the word, yes? So every one of us is given the power of the word, because we're created in the image and likeness of God. And if God wanted us to have everything that God is, it would have to give us its creative nature. And it would have to give us its creative nature with no strings attached. Because if it had strings attached, I would be less than the image of God. Do you see that? It has to be the full enchilada, or it wouldn't be a full gift, yes? So God's power of the word is now self-evident. Intelligence creates by contemplating itself. Now you say that. I create by contemplating myself. And whatever it is you're believing yourself to be, you're created. So what is wrong, what appears to be wrong with the world, or what appears to look like chaos in the world, is all of these people thinking they're just thinking thoughts to themselves. But your thought is connected to the one mind. And your thought is in the one mind. And your thought is movement in the one mind. So if your thought is all of those people are jerks and so-and-sos, well, then you're manifesting jerks and so-and-sos, multiplying them by the millions. Now, how many people in the world, of the 7 or 8 billion people on the world's planet now, it was 7 not too many years ago, I don't know what the count is now, but it's somewhere between 7 and 8 billion people, right? Right? In the world, how many people are aware that everything I do is setting something into motion? That every thought I think is setting something into motion? I would say that Grant, let's do it here. Let me borrow your arm. So the percentage that we're going to be right-handed? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So put your arm up. There you go. So the percentage of the world is that is aware that they're connected is 10%, is 8%, is 7%, is 6%. It's getting that 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, right in there. Do you feel it? So apparently, just checking the atmosphere, about 3, 4, or 5% of the billions of people on the planet actually are aware. So when you're looking at the evening news, where's all that mess coming from? It's actually coming from jumbled thinking, right? By great masses of jumbled thinking. Now, are you subject to the great masses of jumbled thinking? You're immersed in it and you belong with it, but if you identify with it, then you'll be subject to it, yes? If you see yourself as radiant, vibrant, dynamic health, then people say, well, it's cold season. In the land of God, there's no such thing as cold seasons, right? God didn't design any dysfunctional seasons. There's no dysfunctional seasons, right? So that belief creates, right? Then we multiply that belief by investing money into the belief and making commercials about the belief and then paying money when they support you in drugs with that belief. And then we have a belief that the body's not supposed to be okay without a purple pill. And then consequently, you need a purple pill for the body to be okay. So long as that's the belief. Now, you don't have to believe that because the universe is responding directly to you because you've been given the gift of the Word. Do you see that? You can't, and everybody's been given the gift of the Word. But if you've been given the gift of the Word and you don't know it's a gift, it's liable to be a hell of a burden. Do you see that? Because you think you're having your independent thoughts in your own little mind, just hating everybody that you want to hate and resisting everything you want and attacking yourself with your little invisible hammer. I'm not good enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not educated enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not clear enough. I don't know enough, right? And every time you're putting that in, you are creating that, right? You say, well, so what do? Well, we say, there's one power. That power is perfect. That power is the perfect life of God. That power is my life right now. That power responds to me by corresponding to me. And it's listening to everything I say, which means everything I think. Right? So the Catholic Church had this idea you had to go tell God through the priest what you were up to. Right? And that way you could absolve yourself and get clear. Well, I got news. God already knows what you're up to, and the only one who has the capacity to absolve you is you. And there's no way God doesn't know what you're up to because you're in God, as God, of God. You belong to God. You're part of the cosmos. And everything you do affects everything. What? Well, God's very fair that way. He said, you will be subject to the race so long as you believe you're subject to the race. You will be subject to the laws of chaos so long as you believe you're subject to the laws of chaos. When you believe that there's a pattern of perfection, not that no one is perfect, but that everyone is perfect, and that pattern of perfection is okay. It's not even mad at me. Just because I'm less as my personal self than that perfect pattern, it's not mad at me. It's still loving me, sending me directions, saying, this is the way to reveal your true and entire nature. It's always talking to me, saying, I love you, I bless you. You say, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I was a terrible person. Oh, God, okay. And the universe says, well, no, I love you and bless you. When you quit terrorizing yourself, you'll have a lot less terror in your life. Do you see that? Whoa. And what's the big fear in the world today? Right? How are you doing? How are you in there? Are you at peace? Are you standing for life, liberty, and justice for all? How are you doing? Right? Because that's what's happening. Because you are so loved, God has given you the Word. And the Word is happening to you. So when that awareness comes to us, we go, now we hear Jesus' line. My burden is easy and my yoke is light. Oh, the thing that needs to be yoked is the wild horse of your mind. That wild horse needs some reins on it so that it doesn't keep taking you off the trail into crazy land of chaos that the rest of the race is doing. Do you see that? And we say, well, I'm not radiant, dynamic, vibrant health. They say something's wrong. No, you are radiant, vibrant, dynamic health. You believed in something being wrong, and all you have to do is change your mind back to what is true. And that false appearance will disappear, and health will show up, right? We release that which no longer serves us, and we take on that which does serve us. Do you see that's not destroying anything? If I'm releasing that which doesn't serve, do you see I'm not at war with anything? I'm simply making a new choice. I'm choosing what I am identifying with. And by choosing what I am identifying with, this power of release is working automatically. Do you see that? So here's now we go back into the biblical stuff, right? And the biblical stuff says, let me see, where's my notes here? I had it here. Here it is. And here it goes in John, book of John 1:1. It says, Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. So look at that from our nature. My soul nature is in the image of God. It's whole, complete, and perfect. And its nature, coming directly from God, from the I am that is God, through the I am that I am, is trying to give that nature to me. And it says, above all things, I want you to be healthy, even as your soul. I want you to be healthy and prosper, even as your soul is healthy and prospering. Right? So we go to the 12th century mystic, Meister Eckhart again. The soul has two faces. One is gazing at the glory of God. If you're gazing at the glory of God, are you not prosperous? You're prosperous. If you're gazing at the glory of God, you are obviously prosperous. Right? And the glory of God is all health, all love, all truth, all wisdom, all peace. You go through the list. All of those things, right? And it's also directing the senses. My soul is trying to lead me into the path that will reveal the lotus flower of my true nature. But when I don't listen, it doesn't get mad at me. Do you see that? God doesn't get mad at you, nor does your soul get mad at you. It's still busy gazing at the glory of God and trying to direct you into that path. And you ignore it, and it loves you just as much. It doesn't ever stop loving you. It doesn't ever stop knocking at the door of your awareness. It's just asking you to knock back. Ask, seek, and knock. It's already it's saying, I'm asking you, pay attention. I'm seeking that you pay attention. I'm knocking at the door of your awareness that you may grow into the glory that is your true nature. But it needs you from the other side. So this is what Judge Troward says. Judge Troward says, and it comes almost exactly to what Walt Whitman said. I shared that poem with you a few weeks ago. Judge Troward says, the power of your word is going to come from the power of your love and devotion in the one. And I said this to the Thursday group, but I remind you, New Thought is not a renunciant religion. It's not a renunciate tradition. We don't say you have to renounce anything. It is a devotional tradition. And it says the more devoted you are, the more power you have. And so I come here every Sunday. I talk with you time and time again, only to try to do one thing, to inspire your devotion. Because the more you know that God is glory, and therefore I am glory, the more power you have in your word. Do you see that? So we meditate daily in order to slip away from the confusion of the race and go in to the peace of our soul, into the prosperity of our soul, into the health of our soul. We separate ourselves from the world by daily meditating. And then we have this extraordinary capacity to use the word to bring forth more life. And your word has as much power in it as it has a desire for more life. Is that making sense? The more life, the more joyous expression of life, the more beauty, love, freedom, glory, name all of the things that you would call more life, radiance, health, vibrancy, those things, the more you are in love with the one, therefore in love with yourself, therefore able to commune with all things in the world and all people in the world, the more power your word will have. Yes? And so let me just close with this idea of Dr. Holmes. We already know that all we are doing, all that Gene Roddenberry did, was stretch ideas past where they were. Within 20 years of his life, most of the ideas that he set in motion, particularly in that series called Star Trek, most of those ideas are taking form right now in the world today. Not as science fiction, but as science fact. So this capacity we have to look at the world with the eyes of the Christ, to look at the world with the eyes of the awakened Buddha, to look at the world as the I am actually is, and draw that forth is the power of the word within us. Now, if that isn't an act of love, I don't know what is. I love you so much, I've given you all the power I have, and you can use as much of it as you are able to embody. And how do you embody more? You simply make sure that the things that you are thinking about bring more life. And you do not give yourself permission to go to those other places. Sorry, I have permission to run my own mind, and I'm going to do so. Yes? The biggest life, Dr. Holmes says, is the one that gives the most, the one that loves the most, has the greatest understanding and the greatest consciousness of the eternal good. That would be a lot of devotion, yes? And redistributes this good to the greatest number of people. There is no limit to the love that you can have. There's no limit to the love that you can use. And there is no limit to your capacity to bring love into the world. And the more you do, the more like your true and eternal nature you'll become, the freer you'll become, the more powerful you'll become, and the more loving you will become. Now, the good news about the law of compensation is the more loving you become, the more loved you become. So wherever you are in your journey, whether you're facing the deepest challenge you've ever faced, or you're looking to make more room to receive this good at a higher level than you've ever known before, this I know for sure. Everything's going to work out just fine. And I invite you to think on these things as together we explore the possibilities. Namaste.